Then we will get a taste of the high holidays. One prayer that we say on the Slichot service. We have the book of Slichot, page 15. There is many prayers that we say during Slichot that we say actually on Yom Kippur. And the prayers, the prayer book is thick and big. There's a lot of prayer. If you were born 2,000 years ago, you would pray much less. Every few generations, another page made it to the prayer book. But it's not like that we're adding new prayers here. But there is one prayer that is really in one paragraph.
This is Roman humor.
In one paragraph, we are actually covering all of Jewish history. Because during the time of prayer, are we awakening the soul of the Jew? The whole purpose of the prayer is really to touch somewhere deeper. You know, there is a story, every time people ask me, why is such a long service? And the same thing again, Al-Chet, and again, Ovinu Malkeinu, and again, especially in Kippur. It goes on, and on, and on, and on, and on. No matter how short you try to make it, it's long. I have a story about, was once a rabbi was asked, a Chabad rabbi was asked to go convince a Jewish girl not to marry somebody out of the faith. She was engaged to somebody. Then he came, and everybody was saying, "You go speak to her. You will make it. You will speak." And he was like, he started to shake, and now everybody puts the whole up that he's going to save them. Then he asked the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, what should he tell her? And the Rebbe told him like this: "I cannot tell you what to tell. You speak and speak until one word will come out from your heart, then it will penetrate your heart." Because there's a saying, "Dvarim hayotzim min halev," words that come out from the heart, enter other person's heart. If you say something from the depth of your heart, it will have an effect. If you just say something nice, fine. When you mean it, people feel it. The same thing is prayers. On the high holidays, you come to shul to make this connection. You daven, till you one prayer hits you, and you're making this connection. Then, you know, if you want to live, it means you never made the connection. Because when you make the connection, you don't want to live. And how long do I have to pray? Until you make the connection. And when you make it, you don't want to live. Then you are feeling good about it. That's why it's not what prayer, it's it clicks. And that takes time. Then doing these prayers, we are trying to remind ourselves all the time that God answered us. And therefore there is answer us, God answer us, and there is all these prayers. There is one prayer here we mention all the times in Jewish history, all the times, but many times that God, from the Bible, that God answered to famous Jewish heroes throughout Jewish history, and God answered them, so He can answer us too. That's the idea. So we start with the first line.
Answer us, God, answer us, oh God, answer us.
Okay, we'll stop right here. First of all, the class is in memory of Jared Orch. Thank you, Corey. And we all started the first line. He who answered our father Abraham at Mount Moriah, may he answer us. Our father Abraham, God answered Abraham at Mount Moriah. What did He answer them? First of all, He sent them to offer His son as a sacrifice. And then He told them, I don't want you to sacrifice your son. And Abraham, then he went for nothing. And then God sent them a ram from far. And he saw the ram, and he offered the ram instead of the animal instead of his son. And then God promised them that from his child Isaac he will see a lot of he will be successful, and so on and on. And that's the first time that we mentioned that God answered the prayers of Abraham at Mount Moriah. One of the explanations why God did the whole thing of sacrifices, first of all, to show how dedicated Abraham is. How far is he go? Is he ready to go to do for God? And he was ready to go so far because God told him, from Isaac you'll be the whole nation. And then God tells them, sacrifice Isaac before Isaac had a chance to be married, to have children. And he didn't ask questions, but it doesn't make sense. He just did what Hashem told him. Another more modern explanation is, then, in other religion at that time, the concept of sacrificing children was very common. God wanted to start the Jewish religion with making a statement, no human sacrifices, finished. But he made them, so to speak, be ready to do it, and then said, no more. Then this is the first one we mentioned Abraham. Then we mention Isaac. Go ahead.
He who answered his son Isaac when he was bound on the altar, may he answer us.
Isaac, when he was on the altar, was also praying to God and asking for, I'm sure, I don't know if he wanted to be sacrificed or he wanted to be sacrificed or didn't want to be sacrificed, but from the way the prayer is answered, is written, obviously, he didn't want to be sacrificed. God answered his prayers. Number 3, we first mention Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as we do in every prayer. Just by mentioning the names of the forefathers, we are, so to speak, we come to God and we say to God, look what our forefathers were ready to do for you. Then the merit of the forefathers should go on our behalf, should be on our credit. The third one.
He who answered Jacob in Bethel, may he answer us.
What was going on in Bethel?
Dream.
The dream was in Bethel? Yeah, you're right. The dream was in Bethel. And what was Jacob praying to God after the dream?
If God would protect him, he would.
Yeah, safe journey.
If God will protect me and I will go on this way and will bring me back to my father's house, I will make this place a house of God. Bethel. I think they said, I don't know if I remember correctly, Bethel and Shiloh is the same thing, could it be? No?
Mm-mm.
Doesn't make
That
sense.
is,
No,
Where
Bethel
is
is
Bethel is the
Jerusalem, isn't it Jerusalem?
Yeah,
Mount
but no,
Moriah,
not so
wasn't it?
Shiloh was up north.
And Bethel is real.
Well, but Mount Moriah is.
Yeah, no, if it's Mount Moriah, I understand, but there is something else about, not Bethel, but maybe another place. Could be, I don't remember, but something. Okay, that God answered Jacob, and actually God fulfilled Jacob's prayers. He brought them back to his home, with his family, complete and successful. He left with nothing and he came back with everything. Okay, the next one.
He who answered Joseph in prison, may he answer us.
Joseph was in the prison. Hebrew, that was already the black sheep of the family. In Egypt, an Hebrew is a nobody, a slave, accused of trying to rape the master's wife. He was in jail without parole, forever, for good. And he was sitting in jail and prayed to God, take me out of this place. And on Rosh Hashanah, God's prayers were answered. Joseph's prayers were answered. This story happened on Rosh Hashanah. It's written that on Rosh Hashanah, Joseph was taken down from jail and he was taken to Pharaoh. That was on Rosh Hashanah. The Akedah was, I think the Akedah was on Rosh Hashanah too. That's why we read the story of the Akedah on Rosh Hashanah, because this was on Rosh Hashanah too. Could be most of the stories happen on Rosh Hashanah, but I cannot tell you for sure, but for sure this is happening on Rosh Hashanah.
Isn't there the ultimate story that it happened at Pesach?
Which one?
The Akedah.
The Akedah and the birth of Isaac could be that there is two opinions if it happened on Pesach or on Rosh Hashanah. But why we read that story? Because we read the birth of Isaac. Why we read the birth of Isaac on Rosh Hashanah? Because according to the Talmud, the prayers of Sarah were answered on Rosh Hashanah. If it was the birth or she got pregnant, whatever, her prayers were answered on Rosh Hashanah. But for sure, about Joseph, I remember written in the Medrash that took place it was on Rosh Hashanah. That Joseph's prayers were answered and he came out from jail and he became second to the king, the ruler of Egypt. The next one is the one Sea of Reeds.
He who answered our fathers at the Sea of Reeds,
Yeah.
may
He answer us.
he answer us.
He who answers our father on Sea of Reeds, that we know for sure it wasn't Rosh Hashanah. That was Pesach. That was the 7th day of Pesach. The Jewish people were in front of the sea and they see the Egyptian coming from on them with a huge army, and they just are standing with their babies and their children, and the water there's nowhere to run away. And they cried out to God. Vayitzaku el Hashem, they cried out to God. And God told them, Moses, tell them, everything will be good. You should just stand there and miracles will take place of them. And God told them, tell them, they see the Egyptians today, they'll never see them again. That's the first time that God tells the Jews they shouldn't go back to Egypt, they never see them again. And it was the miracle for the Sea of Reed is even in the movies, everywhere. This is still stories that are known to most of us. Next one.
He who answered Moses at Horeb, may he answer us.
What's Horeb?
It's Mount Sinai.
Mount Sinai. Who answered Moses in Mount Sinai? When was Moses praying at Mount Sinai? When,
40 days.
what was he praying for?
Forgive
The first time and the second time.
Forgiveness! Huh?
I would say it's the first time and the second time.
Praying, he was praying between the first time and the second time. And then he prayed for the God. Still, even the spies were still at Mount Sinai. It's before they left. It's before they
Really?
left.
No,
No, it was right
No,
after.
no.
Right after. They left, and right after that it happened, right? Yeah, they left Rosh Chodesh Iyar, and when he sent the spies?
Spies was Tisha B'Av.
They came back on Tisha B'Av, that 40 days before.
Right.
They left on Sivan, yeah. On Tammuz, they left. Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, they left. If it were on Tisha B'Av, Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, they left. Yeah, that was after that. But basically, when he prayed for the golden calf, for forgiveness. When God had forgiven for the golden calf? When was the forgiveness day of the golden calf?
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur. It's all connected. On Yom Kippur, God said, I had forgiven you. How we know that God forgiven Yom Kippur? He gave them the second set of tablets. The best forgiveness you can get. Okay, the next one.
He who answered Aaron with the censer, may he answer us.
That we have so far Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Joseph, Moses, and now Aaron. Aaron with the what?
Censer.
With the censer. When was censer? What was the story with Aaron with the censer?
Yeah, but that was after Medjugorje. That's the
He's the peacemaker.
Pacemaker?
Peace. He says peace. He's a doctor.
That was the first pacemaker.
Yeah, which plague? It was after the story of Korach. Korach was already swallowed up. The Jewish people complained a day later, the Jewish people complained to Moses and Aaron, you're killing everybody. Every other day there's another killing going on. As they complained, a plague started. And Moses didn't have a chance even there was not even an argument with God. That Moses tells Aaron, go and take a spoon, like a big pan, from the altar with incense, and run to the plague, and stand between the dead and the living. And you'll stand there and you'll stop the plague. That the same incense that in the story of Korach killed the 250 people who offered incense against the laws of God, the order of God, the same incense who killed the two sons of Aaron, Nadav and Abihu, who offered the wrong incense, the same incense stopped the plague. God wanted to make a point that it's not the incense who is making the problems. It's if you do what God tells you or you don't do what God tells you. The Talmud describes a whole discussion. He came to stop the plague. The angel of death is there. He told them, he told me, you're not going anywhere. He told them, what do you mean? I'm a messenger from God. He said, Moses sent me. He said, am I telling Moses? I'm telling you God. He says, listen, Moses never says anything that God doesn't tell him. You have an argument? Okay, let's go together. Moses and God are just now at the tent of the meeting. The crowd of glory zoomed down. We'll go and we'll have a discussion. That's how he stopped the plague. That Aaron was stronger than the angel of death. He stopped him. Since then, there is a tradition that for a way to stop plagues, to say that, Ktoret is a parsha with in the Torah it's written now of how to offer incense. That this paragraph, how to offer incense, we say every day in the morning service, the preliminary service, and in the afternoon before Mincha. Every day, twice a day, for this specific reason. First of all, we say it is because you cannot offer incense, that our word should be like we offer incense. Anything we cannot do, we speak about. You see, when you speak about something, it's because you cannot do it. You cannot give your child a hug, you talk about them. To give him a hug, you give him a hug. Don't talk. The children who are home, you never speak about them. You don't brag about them. They don't exist. Why? Because they're here. If you have a moment of love, you give somebody who is far away from you, you talk about them. You cannot hug them. But how you satisfy your need of love? By talking about them. Any mitzvah that you can do, we don't talk about. We don't talk about giving charity, we just do it. The people who talk don't give, the people who give don't talk. That's how all the system. Why? Because if you do it, you have no need to talk about it. If your people talk about going to shul, I want to go, I'm about to go, I'm going to. Don't talk. If you go, you don't talk. It's a non-issue. It's a no discussion. Anything that you talk about, that you do, you look good. People who talk about things, don't do it. People who do it, don't talk about it. People who talk about living Jewish, usually talk about it. It's like a lip service. Lip service means I cannot actually do it, that I talk about it. Therefore, mitzvahs that we cannot do, we talk about. All the sacrifices, all the prayers. We have in every prayer in the Amidah, on Shabbat and holidays, we have a special paragraph speak about the sacrifice. Why? Because you cannot do it. You cannot do it, we speak about it. The mitzvah of tefillin is written in the Torah in one word. The sacrifices are written so much. Why? Because God knew that we will not be able to do it for many, many generations. And therefore he said, the speaking about that, the learning about that, would be considered the doing it. Where what mitzvahs they are putting on film does not written anything in the Torah, because you don't need to, you do it. That's a story with Aaron. Now we'll go to the next one.
He who answered Pinchas when he rose from amid the congregation, may he answer us.
He who answers Pinchas. What is the story with Pinchas? Pinchas saw it was a time that it was an idea of Bilam, the Gentile prophet. He told Balak, the king of the Midianite, to send out the girls. He says, they will seduce the Jewish boys. And then they will convince them to worship idols. And God hates idol worshipping. Then you get in the Jews in big trouble. And suddenly the whole nation, all the Jewish boys are running off with Midianite girls. And a leader of the Jewish people, a leader of the tribe of Shimon, brings this Midianite girl in front of Moses, in front of the whole nation. And he tells Moses, can I marry her? Moses says, no. He told Moses, and you? Moses said also, Midianite girl, Tzipporah. Go tell them that was before Mount Sinai, that's after Mount Sinai. Moses was in Midian, he didn't have anybody else, she converted. You know, explanations on television don't go well. It's a one line, people don't listen to the excuses. Oh, you see? But Moses, he dismantled Moses. The moment he told Moses and you, that now Moses has a personal interest. He cannot say anything. That Moses didn't know what to do. Pinchas got up and he went and he killed the head of the tribe of Shimon and the Midianite girls. And the Jewish people were upset why he did it, and God said, and he had many miracles to happen because he did it in front of the Jewish people. You know, many people could make a lynch on him, to kill him right there. Because nobody told him to do it, he did that on his own. He risked his life and he did it. And God later said that Pinchas, because it was right there was another plague. Because the Midianite, the men did it, a plague started of the Jewish people, 24,000 people died. And because of Pinchas' act, the plague stopped. But here we say, when answered Pinchas, when he stood up, and he did a lot of miracles, a lot of courage, should answer us too. Now we'll go to the next one.
He who answered Joshua in Gilgal, may he answer us.
What happened with Joshua? Joshua is the next leader after Moses. What happened in Gilgal? In Gilgal, it was a story. There is a story, they're all long stories, but we'll do it in short. There were the Givonite people who made peace with the Jewish people. They came and they dressed themselves up like they're coming from a far country, and they lied to Joshua, and they told him we're coming from far, make peace with us, and Joshua made peace with them. And then when it was known that they're making peace with the Jews, other nations and kings started to attack the Gibeonites. And they sent a message to Joshua, come save us. That was not a war from Jews who were attacked by anybody. That was a war that the Gibeonites who made a covenant of peace with the Jews were attacked because they made peace with Israel, so to speak. Now Joshua was coming to the defense, not enough, he had his own tzores, he was coming to the defense of another nation because they are attacked of Israel, because of Israel. He went to the war, and God told him, go, don't be afraid of them. That was in Gilgal. And I will save you. And big stones from heaven came and started to beat up the enemies. And it was a war, and it was successful. And it was right before Shabbat. And the war was not over. Joshua said, Shemesh begivon dom, the sun should stop, should not go down. It was standing at that time above Givon, above a certain place in Israel. And Yareach, the moon, should stay where it stays in Emek Hayalon, a different place. And for a whole day it was standing. Basically, he pushed off Shabbat a day. Oh, it was after Shabbat, whatever the system was. But he stopped the sun. It was a miracle that even Moses didn't make. It was a miracle that came out. The name of Joshua became bright and big all over the world. Everybody knew about Joshua after this miracle. This happened, a miracle not for Jews. A miracle when Jews were fighting to protect neighbors who lied to them, and because they lied to them, they made a peace with them, and they were, all of this happened. That's what he's talking about, the one who answered Joshua in Gilgal. The next one is,
He who answered Samuel in Mizpah, may he answer us.
what happened with Samuel in Mitzvah? Samuel was born to his mother Hannah. We read the Haftorah on the first day of Rosh Hashanah, we read about Hannah, how hard she had to have a baby. Why you read the story about Hannah? It's written in the Medrash, 3 women were answered on Rosh Hashanah. Sarah, Rachel, and Hannah. That's why Rosh Hashanah is really a day of Jewish women, more than men. These 3 were answered on Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, on the first day, we read in the Torah reading, we read about Sarah, she had a baby. In the Haftorah, we read about Hannah. And the second day of Rosh Hashanah, we read in the Haftorah about Rachel. Then Hannah had a baby. She came to Shiloh. She prayed there, and she promised, if I have a baby, I'll dedicate him to God. She lived up to her promise. She brought him to Shiloh. She brought him to Eli, the high priest, and she told them, this is the child that I prayed for. And Eli took him under his wings and raised him to be a prophet. And after that, when Eli died, Samuel became the prophet. What caused Eli's death?
His sons. Right?
What happened that really made it? What really happened? It was a big boo-boo happened there. Big tragedy. What happened? What caused Eli's death? Why? He was sitting in a chair. It was very heavy. He was 98 years old. And when he heard something, he fell back. And he hurt his head and he died. He heard they had a war with the Philistines. And they took the Ark of the Covenant to the war. Something they didn't do for 369 years. And when the messenger arrived from the war, and he said, the Jews lost the war, Eli listened. And your 2 sons died, he listened. And the Ark of the Covenant was captured by the Philistines. Eli fell back and died. Samuel took over. Samuel didn't look for the ark. Samuel started to go from city to city. Samuel was a Chabad rabbi. He took his donkey and he went from city to city to spread Judaism. And he had his own little things. He never wanted to take from anybody anything. He had his own little bag, and wherever he came, he set up his own shop, and he spread Judaism, and he welcomed Jews back to Judaism. After 20 years, he made a huge gathering in Mitzpah. During these 20 years, the Palestinians, since this war, they controlled the land. He made a big event in Mitzpah, and he gathered all the Jews, and Jews came from all over. Thousands and thousands of Jews came. And when the Philistines saw, and he came to pray to God, to make a commitment, to renew the commitment to God. He wanted to revive the whole nation, to bring them together. The Philistines saw that the Jews are getting together. They thought maybe there is a war. That they gathered, and they wanted to beat the Jews up. They started to attack the Jews. And the Jews prayed to God. And this time God heard them. And again, God made a storm, and it was like a huge storm of rain, and hail was falling, all of this stuff, and they got so scared they started to run against each other, and they beat up each other, and they got all messed up, and they basically they lost the war big time, the Philistines, and the Jews started to control the land once again. That's what he says here. The one who answered Samuel in Mitzpah. The place was called Mitzpah, and that's where to save them. The one that we recall this event that God saved when all the Jews were committing themselves to God, and suddenly the Philistines are attacking them. They prayed to God, and it worked.
Did they get the Ark of the Covenant back?
The Ark of the Covenant came back by itself to the Jews because it's a good thing. We will speak about it probably the second day Rosh Hashanah. You're all invited. And we got it back, but we never looked for it. It's an important thing. We never looked for the Ark. The Ark of the Covenant, wherever they bought it, the Philistines caused death and sorrows, and they brought it back to the Jewish people. But later, when it really came to the Holy Temple, King David brought it to Jerusalem. And even then, somebody touched it and somebody died. The Ark of the Covenant was not, it's something you better don't touch. But
Then it's hidden.
Samuel understood that if it's gone, that's a symptom. The problem is us. He said, forget about that. I need the Jews. Jews, not that.
So it's Rabbi, it's hidden someplace.
Yeah.
You've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Second day
yeah.
Rosh Hashanah, we'll talk about
I've got to address the Torah.
it. I know. That's why I'm saying. A little patience. Next one.
He who answered David and his son Solomon in Jerusalem, may he answer
That's
us.
a very general thing. The one who answered David and Solomon in Jerusalem. Answered them many times. But I think it was he talking about when Solomon celebrated when he brought the Ark of the Covenant to put inside the temple. When he built the temple, he brought the Ark of the Covenant. The doors of the temple were not big enough. They were not opening. The gates were not opening. He couldn't bring in the Ark of the Covenant. And he started to pray to God to help him. And he mentioned our forefathers and the Jewish people and this, and nothing worked. Finally, he said, do it for the sake of David, your servant. And then the gates opened. And that was a huge victory for David. David died already. Why it was a huge victory? Because who is David's ancestors? Who is David coming from? Ruth.
Jesse.
Ruth and Jesse.
Yes.
Ruth. Jesse comes from Ruth. Who was Ruth?
Moabite.
A Moabite convert. I know it's written in the Torah, a Moabite should never marry into the Jewish people. When Boaz wanted to marry Ruth, he asked the rabbis, they told him a Moabite man cannot marry the Jewish people. He can convert, but cannot marry. A Moabite woman could. But it wasn't written clear in the Bible. And many people used to yeah, David, yeah. Yeah, I know his grandmother, the Jewish people never forget anything. I know him. Yeah, I know, remember his great grandmother, yeah. They are all good for a yeah, the Jews are always there. Then, even when David did stories, David did a story with Bathsheba, and all the Jews said, you see, and David did a lot of stories with Avshalom and with this. But when Solomon came, and when he needed to open the gates of the temple, and miraculously nothing worked, and when he mentioned the name of David, it worked, It's written, the faces of the enemies of David turned red or black or green, you name it. Then everybody saw how much David is loved by God. That nothing goes worked, only this work. I think that's what he's talking about, that he says who answered David and Solomon, because he really answered Solomon on behalf of David in Jerusalem. Okay, the next one.
He who answered Elijah on Mount Carmel, may he answer us.
He who answered Elijah at Mount Carmel, we all know the story. We say, when we say the prayer, we say on Yom Kippur, before we blow the shofar, the climax of Yom Kippur, is we say, Hashem hu Elokim. God is our God. We have mentioned it 7 times. This statement, God is our God, comes from Mount Carmel story. During the Mount Carmel, Elijah lived in a time. There was 2 kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Israel were all idol worshippers. And the king was an idol worshipper. His name was Ahab. What was the king? Ahab, right?
Ahab
And
Jezebel.
I know.
Jezebel,
yeah, she was even better. and Ahab was speaking against God and everything. And Elijah said, and once the whole long story, we don't even have enough time to tell the whole story. Maybe we have. It was a story, it is connected to Jericho too, it's interesting. And Joshua conquered Jericho. He made a curse. He said, anybody who will try to build a city, his kids will die. Many years passed, nobody dared to do it. And then came a guy, his name was Chiel from the Beit Ha'eli. Chiel decided to build this, and his kids died, all his kids died. And then as Elijah came to offer condones, God told him, go there. He go there, he met Ahab, the king. The king told him, who is greater, the teacher or the students? He said, what do you mean? He says, Moses or Joshua? He says, Moses. Why are you asking? He says, look, Joshua said who gave a curse, it worked. Moses says if he will, in the Shema, if he will not observe the commandment, it will not rain. Look, the economy is booming in Israel, and nobody's doing mitzvahs, nobody worshiping idols. Elijah got so upset. He says, you are thinking God is nice to you? And he says, for 3 years will be a drought. Elijah said. God listened to Elijah, but God didn't like it. You don't do something like this just to make a point. And they just suffered. It was bad, and it was. After 3 years, Elijah said, okay, he said, let's once and for all, we'll see who is right. At that time, the Baal was the most common idol. It was the most modern idol at that time. It was like today, I don't know whatever the idol of today's world is. The in thing to do was to worship the Baal. There were 400 prophets of the Baal. And Elijah, he gathered the whole Jewish people to Mount Carmel. And he said, let's do a showdown. We'll see who can speak in the name of God. He built the altar, and he poured a lot of water there. And he says, we offered the sacrifice. He said, the one who can bring down a fire from heaven, he speaks in the name of God. He says, you're the many, you start. All morning they were praying to God. Garnish, nothing, obviously nothing. Somebody, the same Chiel who built Jericho, was trying to crawl underneath the altar to make a fire. A snake killed them. Because people standing from far, thousands of people standing, they will see a fire. They don't care who made the fire. There's a fire, show him. Go argue with everybody. It's like Moses, go argue. Then God made sure that there will not be a fire. And there was a half a day, nothing. Came early afternoon, after midday. Elijah said, now it's my turn. He cleaned up the altar, fixed it. He poured a lot of water to show everybody there is no flames, no fire, no hidden fires. He offered a sacrifice and turned to God. He said, God, now is the time to show the Jewish people who is right and who is wrong. And a fire came from heaven and consumed the sacrifice. And the whole nation announced, Adoshem hu Elokim, God is our God. And from this we borrowed it to the Yom Kippur service. By the highest moment of Yom Kippur, by the end of Neileh, a second before we blow the shofar, we say it 7 times. We say Shema Israel once. We say the second line, Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed 3 times. Then we say 7 times, Hashem hu Elokim.
Elijah said only 7,000 people were with him. Or was that afterwards?
That was a different. The 7,000 didn't bow to idols. Doesn't mean there was only 7,000 people there. No. 7,000 who never bow down to idols.
Okay.
It's a different, I don't think it's connected to this thing. Listen, how many people were there, it's not written, but that was a lot of people. And then they killed all the Baal prophets. That needed many people to do it. And this is when we're talking about the one who answered Elijah at Mount Carmel should answer us. The next one is?
He who answered Elisha in Jericho, may he answer us.
Back to Jericho. What was the story in Jericho? What was the story with Elisha in Jericho?
What's a couple stories?
Elisha came to Jericho. No, it's one story as far as I know. Maybe you know a few more. And the people there complained to him. They told him, we like the place, but there is one problem. The water are bitter, and people get sick and die from it. That the Talmud points out. Jericho is not an exciting city to live. People said, we like the place. Because God made it that people like the place that they're living in. It's nature of people. Most of the people, normal people, enjoy the place that they live in. I mean, there's a few days in the winter you wish you could live in Florida. But why you live here? Because you like it. Chen hamakom al yoshvav. The charm of the place is on the people. People like the place. Their place they live has a special charm in their eye. Then, even the place of Jericho, it was only tzores. They said, we like the place. There's just one problem. That he asked them to bring a little bit of salt in a new cup, and he put the salt in the water. That the people looked at him and he's putting salt. The water is bitter, and he put salt in the water. Then they walked away. Then they tried the water became sweet. That's the miracle that that Elisha did. What happened later is our story. There were a lot of kids who used to make money by bringing water from other places, and they sold it, and it was expensive. And now he killed the business. They were upset with them, and so on. But that's the miracle that we are talking about.
I'm confused about Jericho. Is that the same city you weren't supposed to ever build a city on?
But the moment they built it, people lived there. The person who built it was not allowed to build it. But later, for example, it's in a different connection completely. You're not allowed to stuff, like taking, chickens and stuff them with food. They should become more, what it's called. There is a word for it.
Force feed.
Force feeding is not allowed. That the person who is force feeding is doing a sin. But I'm allowed later to eat the meat if the meat was slaughtered in a kosher way. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't sin. The guy who did it sinned. The same thing is about everything. Let's go to the next one.
He who answered Jonah in the bowels of the fish, may he answer us.
That's the Yom Kippur story. We read at Yom Kippur in the afternoon before Ne'ilah. We're reading the story about Jonah. By Mincha service, the Haftorah is all about Jonah. Why we read the story there? Because it's a story of repenting. Jonah was sent by God to go to the city of Nineveh to ask from the people to repent. Jonah himself did not want to go. He did not listen to God. He ran away. He went to Jaffa. He got on the boat. He was thrown into the water. He was inside he was swallowed by the fish, right? And then while he was inside the fish, he was praying to God. That's what we're recalling. Prayer that was inside the fish. When you are in the lowest of the lowest, it was physically the lowest. A fish is deep down in the water. The regular human being, no matter how low you fall, you can never fall so low and survive. He was at the lowest of the lowest, and from the inside of the fish, Jonah offered a prayer, and it's recorded what he said to God. And that's what we are mentioning here. Okay, now we continue in Jewish history.
He who answered Hezekiah, king of Judah, in his illness, may he answer us.
It was already in Jerusalem. Was already after the 10 tribes were exiled. Sanherib controlled most of Israel, and it was a little kingdom in Jerusalem. It was like a hut, so to speak. It was like a little Gurnisht. And Chizkiyahu was the king, and Sanherib came to finish the job. he came with an army of 80,000 soldiers, something like this. 82,000, I think it's like. And he went up, and it was Erev Pesach. And he went up between, he came to a city not far from Jerusalem, Nov. And he came up, and they built him a special tower, and he went up on the tower to look on Jerusalem from the above. And he said, this city, he slept 80,000 soldiers for this. Tomorrow everyone throws a stone, and it's over. His head of the army was a Jew by the name Rav Shokei. And on the other side, Sancheriv's head of the army was a Jew. This guy went and gave a speech over the wall of Jerusalem in Hebrew to the Jews. They should surrender. Many Jews in Jerusalem said, let's surrender. Chizkiyahu was sick. All of them happy together. The prophet came to Chizkiyahu, told him, don't surrender, God will save you. That night was the night of Pesach. And big miracles happened to the Jewish people. But Chizkiyahu was sick. And the prophet tells Chizkiyahu that he's going to die. Chizkiyahu is asking why. He says, because you did not have children. You didn't fulfill the mitzvah of having children. It's an obligation of everyone. He told them, but I didn't have children because I knew that they're going to be wicked. He told them in prophecy, the prophet told them, that's not your business. Wicked, not wicked. You have to do what Hashem wants. Whatever will come out is in the hand of God. He told them, you know what? Give me your daughter, I'll marry her. Between both of us, you have better chances. The prophet tells them, it's too late. He walked out. Isaiah told them that. Too late. Isaiah walked out. Chizkiyahu turned around to the wall on his bed. No, he told Isaiah, finish your prophecy, son of Amoz. Yeshayahu ben Amoz. He was the son of Amoz. He told him, son of Amoz, finish your prophecy and get out. I have a tradition from my father's father, from King David, that there is never too late to pray, that even a sword is on your neck, it's not too late to ask for mercy. Never. Even everybody gives up. The sword is on the person's neck already. Still a miracle can take place. Turned around and he prayed to God, and God listens to his prayers. And he's sending Isaiah back to him and told him, go back and told him that he gave him more life. And he should marry, he should have children. And he married, and he had children. And guess what?
They were lousy.
Exactly.
Rotten kids.
But we have to do what is possible. That's the prayers that answered to Chizkiyahu when he was sick. The next one. They all had that.
No, I did.
Oh, you did? Oh, whatever. I'm sorry.
Bartels.
All right.
He who answered Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah in the fiery furnace, may he answer us.
That was already in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. The Jews are in Babylon. And Nebuchadnezzar one day decided he wanted to get the Jews in trouble. How you get the Jews in trouble when they worship idols? How you making them worship idols? You force them to worship idols. And how you do this? That he said, what he did is, he built a huge monument, 75 feet tall, maybe 100 feet tall. And he said everybody from all over the world, he was the superpower, should come and worship this idol. Anybody will not worship this idol will be thrown into the furnace. He had an advisor, Daniel, that he loved very much. He was too smart, a Jewish advisor, the famous Daniel. He sent him on a mission to Israel. So that was not there during the time. There were other smaller level advisors, Jewish boys who were advisors of the king, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They came to Ezekiel. He was the prophet in Babylon, right? Came to Ezekiel and told them, "What should we do? The whole world is worshiping. We have to make a statement. How would Hashem help us?" Ezekiel told them, "Guys, don't count on miracles. Run away. You don't have to be there. If you're there, you have to bow. Go." They said, "We are going to do it. If we'll die, we'll die. We have to make a statement that not all the Jews are." What is this? There's no God here? They went out. A sea of people is bowing down. Three guys are standing like this. The Jews are buying, everybody buying them. No? The order is an order. Throw them into the furnace. They warned the furnace, they warned them for days in advance. It was Freilach. The whole world came to see it. They were trying to throw three. What a party! Throw people into the fire. They throw them into the furnace. They came with their Shabbos clothing, the Medrash says. They were happy to come and to fulfill the mitzvah of God. They said, we want to make a statement that it's better to die for the belief of God, for not worshiping idols. They were thrown into the furnace and nothing happened to them. People were able to see that the men are walking inside the fire. And then after a while, when they came to tell Nebuchadnezzar, he came himself to see the miracle. He saw this. He ordered they start to reduce the fire to cool it off until they can get to her. And they took him out from the furnace. Now, Nebuchadnezzar turned it against the Jews. He said, all the Jews, you are such a great God, and you are worshiping idols. You understand what he did? And the Jews suffered from it. Basically, I think it's written in the Medrash that Hanan, Mishael, and Azariah made Aliyah to Israel because the Jews couldn't handle when you see an arrow in front of your eyes and reminds you how bad I am. He did it and I didn't. I couldn't continue. The Jews had to put them down. It was they basically made Aliyah to Israel. They couldn't continue to live in Babylon. That this is the story that God who answered Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah inside the fiery oven. May he answer us. The next one is
He who answered Daniel in the lion's den, may he answer us.
Daniel. By the next king, he was still an advisor by Darius. Daniel was such an advisor that whatever he told the kings, they listened. Obviously, all the other advisors didn't like it. I wouldn't like it either. Then what they did, they came to the king and they told him, you're the king, the kings at that time were idols. They were God, not just the king. The easiest way for a dictator to control is to make himself a god. What Pharaoh did, he said, I'm God. Every dictator said that he's God. Then he's God, you have to worship him and that's it. They said, then everybody has to pray to you, nobody should pray to anything else. It's a great idea, he didn't understand what lays behind it. They knew that Daniel prays 3 times a day. That's where it started. The earliest place that we find in the Bible of prayers, 3 times a day, Daniel used to go up onto his attic. He had a window towards Jerusalem. From there we come the whole idea of praying towards Jerusalem. It comes from Daniel. And he prayed. They knew that Daniel will pray to God. And he said, anybody who will pray to God, to somebody else, will be thrown into the lion den. Daniel prayed to God. They came to the king. Oh, he's stuck. He didn't want to do it to Daniel. But they set him up. Now he's stuck. He called Daniel. He says, yeah, I'm praying to God, and God is the one answer me. Finished. You want to kill me, kill me. Daniel knew the law. It's not that Daniel didn't know about the law. He was thrown into the lion den, and the lions were sitting next to him like a little cat. Not bad, huh? They were hungry lions. And they were starved, especially in advance. They should tear him apart. And they didn't touch him. And Daniel came out, and the people who told it about Daniel later were thrown into the lion den. And nothing was left of him. Then God answered the prayers of Daniel while he was in the lion den. And that's what we recall this story, what happened after the first story, the story with the fiery oven. Now we go to the next part of Jewish history. Go ahead. Whoever is next.
He who answered Mordecai and Esther in Shushan, the capital, may he answer us.
Yeah, that's a famous story. Who answered Mordecai and Esther in Shushan, the capital. You know when they needed a real prayer? Esther was going to the king, right? And the whole thing came together. There was a decree came out against the Jews, and Esther is going to the king. And again, the whole weight of the whole Jewish nation is on Esther's shoulders. Mordechai tells her, go to the king and pray for your people, beg for your people. And she said to Mordechai, wasn't called to the king I wasn't summoned to the king for 30 days. And anybody who is not summoned, who shows up in front of the king and is not summoned to the king, deserves death. Only if the king likes him. And he tortures him with his scepter. Scepter, what a name. Scepter. Sure. Then Esther is going. She didn't want to go. But Mordechai told her, who knows if not for this moment you became the queen. I always wondered for 5-6 years why God takes a Jewish girl and forces her to be the wife, the queen of a non-Jewish king. For what? Esther didn't want to go. It wasn't a beauty contest that all the Jewish girls were running there to be elected. Esther didn't want to be there. They had agents all over the world, basically, and anybody who found a beautiful girl sent her to the king, and he decided if he wants her or not. And Esther is going to the king, and she prayed in her heart, God, why have you forsaken me? Kayli, Kayli, lama zaftani. And God listened to her praise. You know what she did before she went to the king? What is her preparation?
She fasted 3 days.
Instead of taking more makeup and to look better in front of the eyes of God, of the king, she wanted to look better in the eyes of God. She was fasting for 3 days and 3 nights. You can imagine how she looked after 3 days of fasting. She went to the king, and the king loved her. This moment, talking about the one who answered to Mordechai and Esther and Shushan, the capital. And Mordechai at the same time gathered Jewish children and prayed to God. And when the children, they saw Haman coming from far, he told the children, run away. The children told them, Haman is coming to kill us, run away. They told them, we are with you, Mordechai, for life and for death. You know what you see in the oldest stories? Or I would say all, or most, or I would even argue all. Every story here, and the stories even that it must be similar. Most of the stories, let's put it this way, are about people who are ready to give their lives for God. Abraham is ready to sacrifice his son. Isaac is ready to be sacrificed. Joseph was in jail, and why was in jail? Because he didn't want to sleep with his. He could be killed for the same. That's a Joseph was not killed. It's a miracle, because who was Potiphar, the chief executioner? That was his business to kill people. For him to kill a slave, that was like a no-brainer. And Joseph knew it. And the same thing is, our father said at the Sea of Reed, it was a matter of you live or die. There is no two ways about it. Aaron, it's not written clearly they died, but maybe that was a life and death. But going before in fighting with the angel of death, you probably get yourself in big trouble. Pinchas was sure was be killed. That's written clearly. Joshua in Gilgal was going to a war. Shmuel, and what happened to end up there was a war. David and Solomon was not a war there. I don't know if it was. Elijah and Ara Carmel was a matter of life and death. Elisha is not a matter of life and death. Jonah was when you were in the when a prophet doesn't deliver prophecy, he deserves that. That when Jonah decided not to deliver a prophecy to Nineveh, he would deserve that. Why didn't he want to deliver the prophecy? Because he didn't want that the people of Nineveh will do tshuva, then the Jews will look bad. And Chizkiah was sick. Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah were in the fire, in the furnace. Daniel was in the lion there. Mordechai and Esther were giving. Esther was risking her life. Now we'll go to the last one, 16. Page 16.
He who answered Ezra in the exile, may he answer us.
Ezra came back from the exile, and he brought with him the Jews back to Israel. And how Ezra decided who came first? And first came Zerubbabel, right? And Ezra came after the temple was kind of built already, I think a year later.
Nehemiah came after him, and then Ezra came after him. Right?
Ezra came after Nehemiah.
Yeah.
Ezra was an advisor. Who was the advisor by the king? Nehemiah? Nehemiah, I think.
Nehemiah,
That Ezra was gathering all the Jews on Rosh Hashanah in Israel, reading them from the Torah, and he had somebody to translate them for the people who didn't understood. And when they read from the Torah and they read how they behave, they cried. And when they cried, he told them, hey, Rosh Hashanah is not a day of crying. It's a day of celebrating. Ichlu mashmalim ushtu mamtakim. Go and eat fat meat and drink sweet drinks. Coke. Chocolate. That's what he told them. It wasn't coke and chocolate, but it was whatever it was at that time.
Did they have raisin challah?
Huh?
Did they have raisin challah?
Raisin challah dipping in the honey. And that was what happened on Rosh Hashanah, the day that he made a commitment, renewed a covenant with God of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. When said Ezra should answer us, but here he says Ezra in the exile. He says Ezra while he was in exile before he came to Israel. He needed the permission from the king to go to Israel.
Yeah.
Right? Was he an advisor?
I think he was a priest, wasn't he?
Priest, yeah. And they have to check what part this line goes. And then he finishes, he who answers, who is next?
He who answered all the righteous and the pious and the wholesome and the upright, may he answer us.
He who answers, but if you want God to answer us, you don't need to have self-sacrifice. Doesn't have to be ready. The person has to be ready to die for God. You have to make a sacrifice. I come to God and says, God, I want this. God says, and what do you give on it? What do you put on the table? What do you invest in? It's a partnership. Okay, I'm ready to give you everything, but no, do something. Anybody who came to ask from the Rebbe for a blessing, the Rebbe used to tell them, add another mitzvah. Do something. Make an effort. Put something. Sacrifice a little bit. Making sacrifices in today's world doesn't mean God forbid. It's making a sacrifice. Then whenever you want to be answered, you have to make a little sacrifice. Then will be answered.